Welcome to this 2024 and first inaugural virtual expo for the League of Robot Runners competition. It's wonderful to have you here. So we have a fantastic program for you. If it's the first time that you're joining us because you've seen the call for participation, or if you've been in the community for a little while, regardless, let's just kind of have a bit of a recap about why we're here, right? So what the Robot Runners competition is about is, well, there's many new and emerging industrial applications, essentially, that require the coordination of a team of robots, right? These problems have many different names in the literature. Sometimes they're called multi-agent pathfinding problems. Sometimes they're called multi-robot motion planning problems. Sometimes they go by other names entirely, right? But in all cases, the setup is very similar to what we see here. We have some environment that the agents or robots are operating in. And we have to move the robots from the starting positions to the target locations, right? These kinds of problems appear in many different settings, and in these settings, the details differ. But what's interesting about all of these different applications is that some core elements are shared, right? So the collaborative robots are typically modeled to be in a grid environment, and they're typically operated using kind of grid assumptions. There's a set of errands that must be run. So when I talk about errands, right, I'm talking about moving an agent from a start to a target location. Obviously, the plans must be collision-free. We're interested in optimizing some objective. Usually the problem that we have to solve is an online one, and we're usually subject to a variety of operational constraints. So there's lots of interest in this problem. So there's many new algorithms that are being proposed all of the time, right? And attention is given across many different communities. So the planning community, robotics, machine learning, computational geometry. All these folks study the problem from many different angles. So some folks are interested in achieving solution quality guarantees. Some people talk about extensions that capture some different aspects of realistic problems, different perspectives on the planning process, whether it's one shot or continuous, right? And these sorts of things. So because of this interest, there's been lots of gains in performance and scalability. So that's great. But with these gains and with this increased interest also comes some challenges, right? So one of the things that's become a little bit difficult in our community is it's becoming harder to track the state of the art, with papers appearing in so many different venues and across so many different communities. Models and terminologies vary between different contributions, and this makes comparisons difficult. Sometimes algorithms are evaluated with different test beds or using different assumptions. Baseline implementations, when we have them, they lack standard interfaces, right? Another thing that's becoming a little bit difficult is the core challenges in the area, right? So there's this explosion of interest, but from the perspective of a newcomer to the area, it's not clear which are the things that our community is kind of trying to grapple with as a fundamental issue, and which are the issues that we're trying to grapple with as more application-oriented or application-specific problems. So that's where the Robot Runners initiative comes in. So the competition was developed to basically promote the study of multi-agent and multi-robot pathfinding, okay? I've listed the goals here. Let me just kind of go over them briefly. So basically, what we're trying to do with this competition is to really identify, right, what are the key issues that people are trying to solve? And how do we, in particular, bridge the gap between abstract models on the one hand and industrial applications on the other, right? So there's this spectrum between these two different places where we, we study things over here, but, things are being applied over here. And sometimes there's a mismatch between these two models. Another thing that the competition is trying to do is provide clear indicators of progress. So we want to be able to see how far we've come over time. To do that, the competition is trying to establish standard models and benchmarks. We're trying to introduce standard interfaces and file formats for working with these sorts of problems. We're trying to encourage and promote the release of open source baselines. Essentially, our activities can be summarized as trying to lower the barrier in some ways for new researchers into this area, right? So that our community remains accessible and continues to grow. Of course, our first competition ran in 2023, and the idea of the initiative is that it will continue over several years with diverse and kind of more realistic test beds, okay? So the Virtual Expo is a community event that we've organized to basically reflect and to try and celebrate, right, the most recent competition round. We have a wonderful agenda for you today. So to kick things off, we have an industry keynote from Federico Pecora at Amazon Robotics. Amazon has kindly sponsored this competition. They've made it possible to gather together such a wonderful group of organizers and to cover all of the costs associated with running this event. After we hear from Federico, there's going to be some reflection and an awards session so that we celebrate the achievements from 2023. Then we're going to hear from some of the successful participants in the competition. We're going to have technical presentations. Finally, there'll be a community meeting where we'll talk a little bit about the 2024 competition and where we want to hear from you about what you think of the directions that the competition is heading in and how it's been going so far. Okay.